Welcome back to another explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into a really fascinating thought experiment today. We've all been there, right? You're standing dead in the center of the grocery store, staring blankly at the shelves because you completely forgot the one single item you actually went in for. Or, oh, even worse, you're at a party and you completely blank on the name of the person you've been talking to for like 10 minutes. It's incredibly frustrating. So have you ever wished you just had a perfect memory? You know, to literally never forget a name, a date for a history exam, or where you left your car keys? Well, today, we're exploring a pretty wild scenario. What if you possessed a completely flawless, photographic, perfect memory?
Just imagine waking up tomorrow morning with this extraordinary new ability. You suddenly have the ultimate superpower where absolutely nothing disappears from your mind. And to be clear, I'm not just talking about having a slightly better memory for trivia night, or, remembering phone numbers without writing them down. I'm talking about a terrifyingly perfect absolute mental record. What if you remembered literally everything?
Try to wrap your head around this for a second. Every single word your third-grade teacher ever said to you during some random Tuesday math lesson. Every face of every stranger you've ever passed on a busy city street or sat across from on the subway. Every book you've ever read, completely memorized word for word from cover to cover. Every single birthday party. Every passing conversation in a super loud coffee shop. Every tiny, microscopic detail from years and years ago. Nothing fades. Nothing disappears into the background. It's kind of an absolute rush just thinking about it, isn't it? Recalling every mundane and magnificent detail of your entire life completely effortlessly.
So, let's look at Section 1. The ultimate superpower. A flawless mental record.
Think about the wondrous, almost unfair ease of studying with an ability like this. You read a chapter of a dense, complicated science textbook just once, and bam, you remember every single sentence perfectly for the rest of your life. You glance at a complex math formula on a chalkboard, and it is permanently etched into your brain without a second thought. But, it's not just academics. Think about the vivid nostalgia of having a permanent, lifelong mental library. You could just close your eyes and relive your very first day of school. The smell of the new crayons, the exact layout of the classroom. Or you could replay a perfect summer vacation as clearly and vividly as if it happened yesterday. I mean, on paper, it sounds absolutely amazing, right?
But that brings us to the flip side, the information overload. This is when forgetting becomes a feature, not a bug.
Because here's the massive catch to this whole fantasy. Your brain doesn't actually want to store every piece of information equally. It has this natural, built-in filtering system. Without it, things get incredibly chaotic. Just think about how much raw data you experience in one ordinary day. Literally thousands of sites are passing through your field of vision constantly. The exact shades of paint on the dozens of cars driving by, the exact number of leaves on a potted plant in an office lobby, the specific, intricate pattern of the carpet you're walking on right now. Normally you take all of this in, but your brain just throws most of it away. If you had a perfect memory, you'd keep every single frame of that visual data, forever. And then, add to that, thousands of sounds. The constant background humming of the air conditioner, the pitch of distant sirens, the subtle rustle of clothing as people walk past you. Imagine walking into a room and just noticing a simple analog clock on the wall. With a perfect memory, seeing that clock wouldn't just be a passing glance. No, it could instantly trigger a hyper-realistic memory of exactly how that room looked 5 years ago. You'd remember the specific rhythmic ticking sound it made, the exact temperature of the room that day, and the exact conversation you were having. You'd be thrust entirely into the past just by looking at a piece of furniture.
Conversations, words, faces, places, sensations. Your brain wouldn't just hold more memories, it would be relentlessly flooded with a paralyzing amount of competing information. Suddenly, your mind has dozens of memories literally screaming for your attention just because you walked through a familiar door or smelled a certain type of roasted coffee. It would become incredibly difficult, if not completely impossible, to ignore irrelevant information just to get through your morning routine. You'd have this overwhelming, suffocating amount of data to process every single second, making the present moment almost impossible to navigate.
Which leads perfectly into our next point, memory versus intelligence, or the database illusion.
See, acing exams with a perfect memory doesn't actually mean you understand the material you're spitting back out. On one hand, you have an incredible library of information. This represents your perfect memory. Sure, you've memorized the entire medical textbook down to the tiny footnotes. But contrast that with true reasoning and creativity, understanding how those ideas actually connect in the real world.
Knowing a fact is entirely different from understanding its implications. A perfect memory only gives you that vast, infinite library. It doesn't automatically give you the intellect or the creativity to actually use that raw data to solve a completely new, unpredictable problem.
The absolutely crucial point we pull from the research is that true intelligence requires so much more than just endless data storage. It requires reasoning, creativity, complex problem solving, nuanced judgment, and, perhaps most importantly, knowing what information actually matters. If your brain is overwhelmed with perfect recall of every trivial, meaningless detail, making a simple, everyday decision becomes a monumental task. You completely lose the ability to sift the gold from the gravel. Everything seems equally important. So the real superpower isn't remembering absolutely everything. It's knowing exactly what to do with the things you do remember.
Now, let's talk about the burden of the past, when awkward moments never fade. Normally, our embarrassing or painful moments lose their sharp edges over time. They blur, they soften, and eventually, hopefully, we laughed about them. But what if your brain couldn't blur them? Think of an agonizingly awkward moment from years ago. You wouldn't just have a vague cringe about it. You would remember exactly what they said to you word for word with the exact stinging inflection in their voice. You would remember exactly where everyone in the room was standing, the specific lighting, and the precise looks of pity or shock on their faces. You would remember exactly what happened and how your stomach dropped in that exact split second. Your brain wouldn't get that natural fading process. A perfect memory preserves the emotional pain perfectly too.
To quote the research directly, instead of memories becoming distant chapters, your entire life could remain like an enormous library inside your mind. Just imagine being 80 years old, trying to move past old mistakes, heartbreaks, and grief, but the past feels suffocatingly close. Every childhood home, every person you haven't seen in decades, every place that literally no longer exists, it's all right there, vividly demanding your attention as if it just happened this morning. It sounds beautiful on the surface, but the total inability to let things fade would make the past an incredibly heavy, unrelenting burden to carry every single day of your life.
And that brings us to our final section, why we need to forget. Moving forward by letting go. We really need to completely reframe how we think about the limitations of our own minds. Forgetting is not a weakness, it is not some broken mechanism or a frustrating flaw in your brain's hardware. It is a vital, beautifully elegant design feature. It's a biological necessity that allows old, irrelevant experiences to become less important. It actively lets small mistakes fade away so that our attention can return entirely to the present moment. If every single moment stayed equally vivid forever, we'd be constantly drowning in the past, completely unable to focus on right now. The human brain forgets because it's specifically designed to help us live.
So if scientists knocked on your door tomorrow and offered you an absolute choice, what would you do? Would you choose to remember everything forever, taking on all the chaotic sensory overload, the paralyzing cognitive load, and the incredibly heavy emotional baggage that comes with it? Or would you choose to keep your normal, everyday human memory with its blurry edges, its frustratingly forgotten details, and its vital, life-saving ability to let things go? It turns out the act of forgetting might just be the exact thing that makes remembering so meaningful in the first place.
So, what would you choose? Would you want a brain that never forgets a single microscopic detail, or would you happily keep your ability to let things fade away into the background? I want to know. Let me know your choice and your reasoning in the comments below. I absolutely love seeing how you all approach these kinds of thought experiments. And hey, if you enjoyed this explainer and love diving into these wild scenarios with me, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for joining me today, and as always, keep questioning everything.